Well, for more on that, I'm joined by Jim Shields, French politics expert at the University of Warwick. Thank you very much for being with us on France 24. Now, first of all, let's talk about the opinion polls, which are key to all of this, aren't they? They do show that public support for the strike is waning. Do you think President Macron's strategy is just to bide his time here, that he feels he may not even need to compromise?
That certainly has been part of Macron's strategy, to give the strikes time to run their course and for public opinion to turn in his favour against the strikers. The problem is that the strikes have not run out of steam. They've passed the test of the holiday period and have now gone on longer than those of 1995 and 1986. And on public opinion, although support for the strikes has been waning a bit, it has actually held up tenaciously, with a majority of those polled still seeing the strikes as justified, and a very large majority looking to the government to come up with solutions by amending its reform bill. So the president's strategy has to move now from one of attrition to one of compromise. And here there's a bigger political calculation to be made. Macron remains caught between his natural base, who support his reform agenda, and all of those who oppose it. He can't afford to lose his base by watering down his reforms too much in an attempt to placate opponents. So he's walking a tightrope between the two, especially with municipal elections coming up in March.
And there are, of course, more than one French union here in France. The moderate CFDT union backs ending the special privileges, the different pension systems for different industries, but it is strongly opposed to any attempt to raise the age of retirement. Do you think this is perhaps where the government might give way?
Yes, the unions are divided. The most radical, like the CGT, demand the pension reform simply be scrapped. So they have no obvious negotiating position opposite a government equally intent on preserving its reform plan. There we have a clear stalemate. The best hope for a solution lies with the more reformist unions like the CFDT, who are not opposed to pension reform on the model proposed, but who oppose some specific provisions, like the target age of 64 for drawing a full pension without penalty. Now, the CFDT has called for a conference to discuss financing this hugely costly pension system, but it's standing firm against any raising of the retirement age beyond the current 62. If the government gives ground there and can prize those more moderate unions away from the more hardline unions, the chances of getting a workable reform through might look brighter.
Now, the unions say these reforms are unfair because they fail to compensate public service workers who are traditionally low paid compared to the private sector. Is that right? And could this in the long term put people off wanting to become teachers, train drivers, etc. here in France?
This takes us to the heart, not just of the current dispute, but to the whole historical rationale for having the complex system of pension schemes that Macron is trying to reform. The attempt to compensate historically for particularly difficult or dangerous jobs, or jobs carrying special risks or disadvantages. It's in that attempt to address disparities that over 40 different pension schemes have grown up. The government now argues that it's putting forward a fairer system for all. But just as there are winners and losers with the system as it is, there will be winners and plenty of losers with the new system proposed. This is why the government has already agreed favourable deals for soldiers, police officers, air traffic controllers and pilots, for train and Paris metro drivers, and even for performers at the Paris Opera. And each one of these exceptions highlights the enormous difficulty of the task Macron has taken on, as well as showing that talking about equality and a level playing field for all is much easier than bringing it about.
Jim Shields, great to have you with us as always. Thank you very much indeed.